And the next presentation, the next BOF is about the Gentoo Infrastructure project, and we have the whole Gentoo Infrastructure project here gathered, which means that nobody is watching the servers right now. And Robin will coordinate the BOF. He will also show some slides, and then we're going to have some discussions about the hot topics that are happening right now in Gentoo Infrastructure project.
Thanks. I'm Robin, Roberto. I've been with Gentoo too many years, nearly a decade. This is we say we have all of infrastructure here. Well, all the people that still do things. We have myself, we have Idler, Christian, Darkside, Jeremy, Theo, Tempercrap, who's been a wonderful host here this morning and all of today, Alec and Taurus, and lastly we have Alex, A3Li. And then we have those other guys that just slack a bit. We won't mention them. We've promoted a few people here on the list you guys may have noticed. Some people, you said you wanted a promotion yesterday? You got your promotion. That said, we're a team of 6 people. The page about infrastructure is one of the very few Gentoo projects that, up until recently, still listed the original top-level project design of both operations and strategic managers. The only reason it doesn't anymore is that one of the people that listed up there retired from doing infra stuff. But infra is unfortunately very insular, and this is an issue that needs to change. We need more people. Some people want to go and do things. Darkside here is taking a wonderful 1-year sabbatical to go and see the world. That leaves infra with 5 people doing things to maintain nearly 50 servers. This is not a good state. How can we make it easier? I don't know. That's one of the things I want to discuss later on. The problem is that end up that we have to trust the infrastructure team. There's the repository and this release engineering stuff. The people in infrastructure can bypass any commit ACLs they want because they have that access. We have some more checks and balances on regular developers. We have some auditing for infrastructure, but you can bypass any auditing. This just doesn't help it. Also in the past, we've had some problem people in the infrastructure team, either directly doing things wrong and threatening people, or being misinterpreted as actually far more common. I'm not pointing at anybody, but I had, as one of the few managers of infrastructure, I've had a number of people come to me and said, either they misinterpreted what an infrastructure person said to them privately, or they wanted to talk to an infrastructure person, and that infrastructure person misinterpreted them, mostly because of the actual English as a non-first language barrier, and they perceived that to be an infrastructure person threatening them or outright refusing to do what they wanted. I also don't know how to help fixing that. Language is a problem there. So I just want the infrastructure team to try and be as relatively impartial we're there to fix the problem and just get infrastructure stuff working in Gentoo. Unfortunately, this also means you can't really assign things like to create any top-level project, developers just volunteer. Yeah, you have to volunteer to fix a bug as well, and fix something in infrastructure. But we can't just assign it to anybody, and that means services, if somebody starts a service, the infrastructure takes it over, we can't always end up maintaining it. We didn't build it in many cases. We try to keep it going. That can be really difficult. The current version of packages, packages Gentoo.org, was put together because the previous one was unmaintainable because the guy that built it left. I don't know. Pardon? No, 2007. So where do we have servers? A mix of EU and US primarily, and then a few in Canada, and so many continents where we don't have anything. We need to find some way to get some more sponsors, more than just more random servers. Random servers that end up vanishing are less useful than even having no server, because we put the work into machines and then suddenly it vanishes again and all our work is lost. If the machine's just going to vanish after like 6 months, it's not worth our time to set it up and keep it running. There've been a few, if we know that ahead of time, yes, we can put together machines. We've done a wonderful job on making our rsync servers for rsync.gentoo.org as stateless as possible for machines that we know are going to just vanish. Darkside did a great job on improving that. And now this count here only includes machines that we consider to be infrastructure. Anything under the subdomain of dev.gentoo.org, all the build machines for architectures and so forth, isn't counted in this. That's another 20-odd machines. So the big thing people are asking about is, when's the Git migration going to happen? It's been around in the work a long time. People think, oh, it's only been around a few years. No, Antares, as a summer of code student, long before he joined infrastructure, put together a proof of concept for a summer of code student project. And it said, okay, this is better than the alternative. And one of the alternatives listed there was stay on CVS. It nearly won. It's gone through many things since then. The most useful discussion of it actually was the 2010 Gentoo GSOC Mentor Summit, because we put it as a discussion topic for Gentoo and managed to grab some of the Git maintainers and said, yeah, what do you think of this? How can we make it happen? The major thing there was commit signing, which was finally done earlier this year. There's also some bugs that we found in Git for weird corner cases that were blocking issues for us. And as I mentioned before, the foundation pursued some bounties. One of those was to get a particular Git bug fix that required extensive Perl knowledge. We paid somebody to do that Perl stuff. So that most of the things are out of the way now. Can it happen this year? Can we see a show of hands? Who thinks we can migrate to Git this year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I'm going to cut that in the post-processing, don't worry.
You just want to edit that number? So how are we actually doing it? Looping over this, update our conversion scripts, update our validation scripts, try them. Expect it will fail. Maybe there should be a likely clause in that while loop. Would probably help it. Once those do succeed, we're just going to take it down read-only, run the conversion and validation stuff, and clean it up, and let people at it. Conversion at the moment, we've got the actual convert time down to 25 minutes. Validation is still in the matter of 18-odd hours, but we think we can get that way down. And then we can start getting the validation better. Validation turns out to have been a much larger issue than we thought originally. I thought I had a slide in a different order, it doesn't matter. Some of the conversion tools end up losing random revisions or not deleting files when the files should have gone away. And that ends up with really weird manifests or missing first revisions of files. If that was the only revision of the file and the file is still in the tree, well, it's missing from your conversion. And that's a problem. So I had a quick mention there of cleanups. Once we have the actual conversion side done, what we're going to end up doing, Git has a concept of grafts. So we're going to take the entire history of CVS and make that a single historical repository, locked read-only. Take the tip commit, like the very, very last commit on that, and run a bunch of cleanups on it and use that as the new root commit as a single commit in a tree for people to start working on. The cleanups in there, we go shrink down all the manifests so they only have dist entries. This is all the thin manifest work that D. Robbins in Ubuntu actually put together some of. Well, he proposed it and then we implemented it better. Nobody was happy with his implementation. Something about coding and signing. Finally, the reason to have the root commit there is that from the start, the Git tree will be signed. Everything. And we can be sure of that. So things that are still left. That validation code. We didn't have a reliable automated way of doing it before. We were doing it by hand, inspecting it. Rich0, one of the other trustees, has started writing some stuff on it. That 18 hours is running on Hadoop with, how many machines did he say he was running it on? On EC2?
I don't know. I thought he said he was using like 30 cores or something.
Yeah. It's an expensive validation, both time-wise and money-wise. We need some Git hooks. We need some more solid decisions on merge policies. I don't know what's going to happen about merge policies. We need to do some small things for the infra scripts, and hopefully for signing stuff, we can also have meta manifest for going out to users, maybe. Can I hope? I wrote a glip and it got approved but never been implemented. Can we make it happen, maybe?
Make it happen.
So that pretty much covers all the Git migration stuff. Other things that are somewhat of pain points for infrastructure, the web nodes. First of all, the ones actually running www Gentoo. They were originally in LA, and now there's just 2 of them in the UK. Guide XML is great. Gorg, the code base, perhaps an application you should not be speaking of. Can we build something better than Gorg that still takes Guide XML and maybe like does a static transform on it? Can it happen? Maybe. And then we can have the rest of our guys here now. What eats the majority of infrastructure time? Web apps. Web apps, web apps, web apps. Say again?
A lot of time is spent on fixing the forums currently, which our users have noticed, and so do we, so do not file any more bugs. Thank you. Well, what we're facing there is, I think, is it malicious traffic?
It's traffic that causes Apache to just get a little bit too big, but each Apache isn't getting so large as that it's hitting its U-limit. Just the collective number of all the Apache children exceeds RAM. We're going to look at C groups maybe for this, but why is Apache getting so big? Nobody's been able to get a sane root answer out of this. We've tried TCP dump and tried replaying traffic. It doesn't work out. We can't reproduce it. We tried trading Apache builds, PHP builds. We can't reproduce it. Maybe the forums guys could change over to PHP BB3. That might also help solve the issue, but we've been asking them about that one for 4 or 5 years, and I don't think it's happened yet. The Bugzilla, I'd like to thank Idlaw Christian here because it just works. The other people in infrastructure don't want to change things in Bugzilla, but it just works. When was the last time Bugzilla was actually down? When I was on vacation in September, because there was something broke with MySQL replication, and I was the only one that knew what to do with the master replication. Other than that, it doesn't break. The rest of the web stuff, the same cannot be said for it. Forums is down at the moment, packages is down at the moment, Bouncer is down at the moment. I think the wiki is working right now.
It's up and slow. But we're also aware of that, and that will be fixed soon.
Web apps eat a hell of a lot of infrastructure time. So are there more people that have infrastructure skills that want to do things helping with web apps? Please, please help, get in contact with us and help us maintain web app things in Gentoo, and the infrastructure specifically.
Yeah, it's easy to say that, but you are so scary in IRC, so people don't step up easily, you know.
Well, I'm not.
Scary. I'm scary. He's not scary.
Yeah, I'm not scary. This is the guy with the goats.
It's true.
So this leaves us clear now here for what questions do people end up having for infrastructure, major issues that I haven't mentioned that people want dealt with. Come on, people, I was told you had questions. Of the Okay, so I'll repeat the question there. He's asking, rather than the Gentoo x86 CVS repo, he is interested in the Gentoo repo, and that's the one that contains all the XML that builds the actual website. An attempt at converting it was made. The largest issue in it was actually getting the translators using it. At the moment, we have very fine-grained commit rights for the translations, and we couldn't work out something such that they can only commit to a specific subdirectory for translations. There was a potential idea that Nightmorph, Joshua Sadler, had for splitting that pod up into multiple repositories, one per language translation, but I don't think he's done any work on it in some months due to some personal hardware failure that he had. I think that's the largest blocker in that regard. It would be nice for it to happen. Yeah, so he asks there, if that can be taken care of, can we move forward? Yes, I think if we solve dealing with the translations, the rest of it can certainly move ahead. I don't know how many. Yeah. So he asks there, and I'm specifically repeating this for the recording, aren't the number of translators actually a very small number since he works in the retirement team? And he thinks if the number is so small, does it really matter? I think if the number is actually that small, I don't know. I have not checked how many people are committing translations. I was just told it was an issue by Nightmorph. If it is indeed that small, yes. I say we can cut it down and just make those people developers and give them commit rights to a single repo and be done with it. And Piotr right next there is getting a microphone coming to him.
Who processes retirements, or can we just get it automated?
Hi. Is this on? There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna fire some people tomorrow. Other than that, I think there's probably a couple more things we could do for automation. Even the automation I worked on last year only covers about 80%. Like I think Planet and a couple other things we need to get scripted. But yeah, I'll give you rights to fire people. That's cool.
Can we start with recognizing more people in given teams that haven't been doing anything and start by firing them?
What?
There's many people. The retirement automation list has. I said the recording there. The retirement automation list has lots of excluded people.
Oh, yeah.
Can we cut down those excluded lists a lot? Yes. There's a big exclusion list in them.
Yeah, but first, like, to add more people to the retirement list doesn't that bring you anything unless it's processed.
I want more people to be considered for retirement because they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Yes, please. Okay. I reword that one. TODO there said that yes, we can potentially get that retirement list exclusion trimmed down, but there's a whole batch of people in it that don't have commit rights to Gentoo x86, and the original reason for considering rapid retirement of idle people was to ensure the security of the repository. Those people don't have Gentoo x86 commit rights at the start. That's why they haven't been actively pursued for retirement. And Marcus at the back there is going to go and talk to a whole bunch of those people and see if they're actually still doing anything, or if they need to start putting their ass into gear. Please start with infrastructure.
Problem is that if someone doesn't have a serious access, then they should retire him, like forced retirement. I mean, it just happened in the store, right?
And Rob, if I may just note, the first step that retirement does is talk to the you know.
Yes.
We only go after people that don't do anything. If someone is doing something, even if small, in every part of the tree, in every project, we don't go after them. Or if there is
I'm saying I believe there's people in the exclusion list that are doing nothing.
And I think that people that are doing nothing, even if they don't have access to Gentoo x86, shouldn't have the Gentoo email actually. They shouldn't deserve to send emails on behalf of our project without being active in the project.
Just for the record, I've never seen that list. I don't know who people are excluded from the...
Okay, people that are excluded are usually translators, infrastructure members, and such kind of people. I'm not aware of the exact ACL for that list, but
By the way, Robert, but didn't I remove that list when I rewrote the script?
I'm not certain.
Because I think unless someone added it back, the exclusion list is gone for years.
No, the exclusion list is still there. It's right at the top. If you go on bugs, there's a bug that asks for a copy of the Slacker script, and I just pasted it in there, right into the bug. So search for Slackers and bugs, and then find the source. Has the script running? It's a crappy shell script.
Hello, can you if I recall correctly, the promise to the street, the first thing it looks for is people that it can commit.
Yeah. I'm saying that in the script,
It's never get up, because they are, the street doesn't know about it. That's
Yes.
what Marcus is saying. And when they never do the commit, it doesn't show up.
No, I wrote a script that iterates LDAP for active developers and just brings all of them.
If someone didn't do a commit, it doesn't show up. All of them must have done. Anyone who never did a commit, never show up.
I don't know if it's in use or not these days, but are you using the old bash rather than the newer Python?
the one we're using is bash.
Okay, so you never...
So maybe your other one got lost somewhere.
Indeed. In response to your other point as to whether the script shows people that have never committed to CVS ever, that's a good question. I don't know if it does. I'll have to go read it. We should be trolling LDAP like your Python. Just give me a link to your Python script and we'll use that instead as long as it's good.
Yeah, and we're making him do an auto-retirement because he doesn't want to process them by hand, so he wants to automate it instead, and I'm quite fine with that. More questions? I really expected questions about the Git migration.
But your news was so positive, Robin.
wait.
I'm thinking I started wondering...
Just throw the microphone.
One thing I started thinking now, we're adding more security in JIT, and that is that in LDAP you can pretty much what is the status with like GPT keys and those in LDAP? I think you sent some kind of email, but should we really start actually making sure they work and stuff like that?
Yes, that's going to be part of the Git stuff. I've got most of that old code back working together. I had a chunk of code that basically went through LDAP and grabbed everybody's keys if it could, and specifically started by flagging those that weren't on the key servers. Because there was like 5% of the listed keys don't exist on key servers. So we can't even start to verify against them. And thereafter, what I'm going to end up doing is sending an encrypted email to each developer using the key that they have listed in LDAP. If they can't respond to it, well, that key needs to be changed. That seems reasonable to you?
Yeah, that should work.
So, okay, so you wanted a Git migration question. I'm actually wondering how are we doing the conversion? I mean, the conversion from CVS, the last time I heard it was supposed to be CVS to SVN, SVN to Git, or?
No, okay, the package name is CVS to SVN, and it has an explicit Git output mode. Okay. That's where a lot of people got really confused. The additional confusing factor is that one of the Git bugs that needed to be fixed dealt primarily with the Git SVN Perl code. And people saw, oh, we're using something called CVS to SVN, and there's a bug with Git's Perl. Why are we going via SVN? We're not, just the package happens to be called CVS to SVN.
Okay, and then one, maybe not a question, but a suggestion for, you've sort of touched on it, merge policies for after the migration. I guess there should be no reason to merge, and if the server allows a merge, then we will find a lot of people will try to push into Git. The server will tell them, oh, there is a new commit there, so you have to pull in first.
Yes.
They will pull, the Git will automatically merge because the change happened in a different part of the tree, and they will get the merge commit, which is really pointless because they could just do pull rebase, and well, you know, it's just going to get ugly really fast, in my opinion. But
yeah, the other problem that was primarily raised is actually people pushing to multiple Git repositories. So if Gentoo x86 exists as one of the Git repositories, but they also have another public one somewhere else. One of the two needs to end up with merges on it, because you can't end up having to force rebase on both of them, because one of your histories is going to end up being rewritten, and then one tree has to end up really dirty, or the other one has to they have to have merges on it. I think merges is the better of the solution there, because it doesn't destroy anybody's history. It doesn't look pretty, but it doesn't destroy history. Is there a better solution that I've missed out? I don't know. That's one of the reasons that the merge policy discussion has to happen.
thank you.
Of course, I don't know if you want to, but it would be a good time to discuss the merge policy a little bit here, but I guess in the end, black and white solutions might not be good enough, but what I personally use is that if you have a single commit and a merge commit, then you should use rebase. Then, of course, well, putting that publicly is something else, but if we exclude merge commits altogether, and like people doing a long thing and overlays and stuff would exclude them, rebasing 100 commits is history-wise
It's painful.
Problematic.
Yeah, I think accepting merges is the better solution. It's not perfect though. Can we accept it as a relative shade of gray? I'm not sure. Does that answer your question? I was a bit vague, maybe.
Well, it was more of a comment than a question, actually.
Okay.
So.
Is it possible to split each category to a separate Git submodule? That would help.
No, we did consider that very early on. That and the possibility of a single repository per package were both considered. That was actually proposed by one of the Git maintainers originally, until we explained to him some of what we do. A single repository per package was ruled out because of the quantity of overhead that it requires. It just ends up, the entire tree ends up being ridiculously large because you have 12,000 Git repositories that way. a single category was ultimately ruled out because packages move between categories far more often than they're simply renamed. And one of the reasons to move forward to Git was to make the movement between categories much easier. And if they end up being sub-modules per category, doing the move ends up bloating both sub-modules. And we really want to avoid not having that overhead.
Okay.
Would it also be non-atomic? Would the move be non-atomic or?
Yes, actually you can end up doing it atomic with submodules. It's just slightly painful. If somebody accidentally updates only one of the submodules by doing git pull inside the submodule instead of the parent, they will not see it atomically. The commit is atomic, but the user view of it might not be. I'm surprised we've been talking about Git for 6 years, so we've gotten to the bottom of all the questions then.
So I have the final one. Is there anything actually stopping us? There is anything you think is, well, I wouldn't say controversial, but something you don't know how to handle, or, you know, it seems like we have everything ready. It's just a matter of sort of verifying that the tools are there to be able to work with it. But what still needs to be done? That's the question. It looks like there's not that much. Yeah.
Validation there is the biggest problem. Even once we have the tools of that done, we know it's going to throw up a lot of cases where something doesn't look right, and somebody is just going to have to put in the manpower to go and review every single one of those validation failures and says, was this really a failure in the scripts, or is it somewhere that the source CVS material was just in such bad shape that the validation, you can't validate it easily. We have to just end up excluding that one. Before I joined Infrastructure to do CVS admin, people were directly modifying the CVS files occasionally and moving things around, which is absolutely horrible, and they should be taken out and shot, because it makes the history impossible to follow. We don't know what point in time that move was made, and the data's gone. I know there's going to be lots of cases of that in the validation that we have to figure out, oh, hang on, somebody actually moved that in the CVS repository at some point by touching the files directly. So we don't know.
Is it, okay, we have our current state, whatever is in the tree right now. Do we really need to validate all the history right now? Because we cannot really guarantee that, you know, as you said, there's too many editing of the CVS files directly and all kinds of weird stuff that went on. Why not just make the CVS read-only as a canonical archive of the history, and say from this point on, this is, you know, based on this state, everything after it.
We want the old history to be available via Git. So via that, as I said, we're going to explicitly use the graph concept the same as the Linux kernel did for their historical. Because the value of using annotations to go back and look when a change was made is really, really valuable. And we've asked people, would you accept the solution of still maintaining read-only CVS? And they said, no, they don't want to use two tools. If you go with Git, we just want one tool. Give us the graph and we can look at the history.
Right. I'm not saying don't do the history thing, just ignore the validation. Well, okay, not completely ignore, but it more or less resembles the history that was there, and if there is some weird case where the move happened in a weird place and it wasn't in the CVS history and whatever, you just ignore it, because it's most probably so much in the history no one cares about it. Because I'm pretty sure the past few years will be okay.
That part of the history being marginally inaccurate as to those files there, I'm fine with. The validation part of revisions or files missing or being undead is really important to us, though.
Robin, do you have any idea if those specific problems you mentioned about undead files or files that were moved, when were the last episodes? So can we say that the last case we were able to detect was 5 years ago, or is it something that is still happening?
As of 2008, we're pretty certain that we caught every single undead file. We've been checking in depth many times before that, but we hadn't caught all the undead files until 2008. So the last move happened sometime prior to me joining as a CVS admin, so it was prior to 2003.
Right. So we're certain that from 2008 onwards, there aren't any of those cases.
There are no more undead files as of 2008.
Well, perhaps what we need is a decision. How much years do we think is sufficient of a clean history, and move from there?
I think once the validation tool is made to become sufficiently fast, it's going to take maybe 20 hours of somebody looking at the validation results to solve it. And can somebody find 20 hours to work on this before December? Maybe, and we can have it done December 1st. If not, we can have a Gentoo Christmas present.
No, I think that it should be that one is. Let's give some time to try to fix, to have validation work as we would like.
Yes.
If we can't get it by that date, let's consider alternatives.
Yeah. It's been discussed. Validation ends up looking at that might probably be worthwhile. The other nice thing about the way that we are doing the conversion and the validation is that we have it completely reproducible so far, such that we can validate stuff in chunks and know up to a given point this is already correct. We don't need to go back and recheck that part of stuff. Most of the problems exist at the start of history, not at the end of our history. So as it goes on, things become easier.
That's why I think perhaps that idea was great. Okay, we care about history, but let's have a certain number of years we are certain that the history is clean in Git, and if needed, let's keep an old read-only CVS archive for those who really want to be sure about the Asian things. Because probably there's very little in the tree with 4 years that is still valid today, but that is still very important in terms of being able to see exactly why it was done. Most of the tree.
See, I'm not so concerned about the validation cases we know about, right? Like the earlier thing about CVS moves. It's validating the history is for things that we don't know about, and even validating the history up to now, right? Like the earlier thing with the missing undead files, right? It means you could have files missing from your tree, and it might be really hard to find in real time, right? Like, oh, I can merge 2,000 packages before I find out that there's some missing, files in FilesDir or something. And that's something we don't really want to have, which means you have to write all of the validation up front so that you can validate. And maybe, we don't necessarily have to fix all the validation errors, but we have to detect them all.
Sure.
And I think that's really more what we're focusing on, and not so much like having a squeaky clean history, which is basically impossible. We just want to know that, the thing we have now is the thing we tend to have.
Super.
Maybe a better way of wording that there is that we want to know about all the problems, but we don't care about fixing all of them.
But validating that the current state is the same in Git and CVS is quite easy. You just compare the directories and files recursively, and that's it, right?
It can be a little bit more difficult than that.
Yeah, well, but if you really care just about the current state, we are not missing files or they are not changed in some weird way, then yeah, just do diff R on the two directories and be done with. Well, I'm not suggesting that, but it should be really that simple to verify the final state or the starting state for the Git, really.
Yeah. So part of what the way the validation scripts loop over is literally loop over time and do that comparison for every point in time. But that's what we're doing. Then maybe there's a more computationally efficient way to do it, but it's going to probably take far too long to write, and we're only going to use the code once. Let's write a version that mostly works, and we can write quickly, and just go through the data and have it done. So yeah, we are actually using that approach just through points in history. More questions?
May I?
Pardon?
May I? So, apart from the validation and the things that Robin talked about and expressed in a very nice list, well done, Robin. There are some things that you may not know, and you may also be able to help. Me and Christian here, we're trying to convert all of our evaluations, all of our repositories to JIT. And we had some difficulties. Some developers, and some I think are also in this room, didn't want to migrate to JIT, even their evaluations. I think that this is a blocker for us. If we want to migrate to one source control management system and we want to keep that and we want to focus on that, why don't we do it globally? So we have first to agree on that. And there are also many other things missing. For example, we don't have any documentation about JIT, about how to use our tools in JIT, like Repaman or whatever, and we need all that stuff, and we need good documentation. So since now we have a very nice wiki that Alex here brought it up, we can also submit something, even I don't know, even if you copy paste a JIT guide from some other project, it would be a good start in order to develop a good documentation and have a good migration in our community. Because I think that we really need that. Especially I see that in the overlays, as maintainer of overlays, I see many difficulties from many people using JIT, and they don't use our tools when they use JIT, and we need to stop that for sure.
Yeah, one thing there is, he noted repo man. If you use repo man commit, it does Git properly, including the commit signing. If you try and do it manually, you'll probably get it wrong. Please use repo man.
And also related note, please use the wiki, yes, but please do not copy and paste, because we do not want to get any licensing trouble with other people. Yes, Creative Commons, share, what is it, the buy, so mention your source and the share alike. Please do not use the non-commercial one.
Non-commercial is going away in the next version of Creative Commons.
Yes, and we're not using it.
Another question up top there, microphone coming your way.
Well, I believe that we can't document something that we have no policies about it. So we can't really document how to hunt edges if we can't agree on how to do that. So I don't think that documentation is really
Propose something. If nobody else opposes you, it passes. Done.
I don't know. First we need the tree, then we need the policy, then we need the documentation, and then we are supposed to put everything in practice. So documentation is not the first step.
That's why somebody needs to start a debate.
Okay. I don't know. Like I said, I can't document something that I don't know about it. So give me a tree, then we can start document whatever it needs to.
Go check. You can check out. There's a conversion that's up on our experimental site that is up to date as of about 4 days ago. That was the last run that we pushed to it. Pull that one. Try commit to it. See what happens. You can't push back. You can't push your commits back, but you can commit locally quite fine.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know we have like an experimental tree somewhere.
I should have put the URL in the presentation. My bad. Git experimental Gentoo. You'll find it.
Can you post it to dev announce and you'll get? more eyeballs.
How about the SCM list? You subscribe to the SCM list?
Sure. We'll post it to dev announce and SCM. And wait for that box to go down in flames. It's a good test case.
One question is that has any thought been given to how to handle user submissions? Just Git AM on Bugzilla, or bring down GitHub with more traffic, or?
So that was being discussed in the Infra channel the other day, specifically in regards to handling signing of that material. And we decided that the best way was running Git AM or pull on whatever source they wanted, and then verifying what you just pulled in. Because invariably somebody is going to have a pile of other junk that really should not have been in that pull. And then educate that user to get that pull smaller, and then leave their authorship tag on it. Add your own name and signed off, the same way the Linux kernel does attribution. Everybody the patch passes through should add their own signed off by tag. And then finally, the actual Git commit that merges this in needs to be a signed commit by a Gentoo developer, saying you're the one that was responsible for this. That should work. Do you think so?
Yes, at least if it's will be usable in the sense that you would have to educate all the people. The thing I wondered about signed commits, why don't we trust SSH just like before?
Sorry, can you rephrase that, please?
Yeah, like currently with it's authenticated by SSH, allowing the thing to come in. What do we gain by signing the individual commits?
So I rephrase that one for you there better. At the moment, we know who pushes something in CVS because they must SSH in to get that committed to CVS. With Git, SSH is not necessarily the only way. If you're potentially offline for a while, you can push your commits some other way, like a Git bundle, to another developer, and he can pass those on to the actual central repository. They should have your sign tag on them still, though, not his. They came from you.
So you want to be able to pass the blame automatically and not just by yelling at the pusher?
Yes. I want the blame as close to the source as possible. This is also why actually having that authorship tag on a given commit would be really useful for those that deal with proxy maintainers. Because we are getting a lot more proxy maintainers, because they're useful. They go float the work from developers.
Theo, you just mentioned that you would like to see everything to go to Git. But I would like you to know that, for instance, if you want to migrate the Gentoo prefix overlay to Git, you just give me an awful lot of pain. And I don't see why. Because suddenly...
What's the pain?
No, it's a pain, because our scripts do not work with Git, because Git does not store some sort of ID in files, whereas CVS and SVN do. And that's exactly how the synchronization right now is being worked on. So what I want to say is basically that when I refuse to actually I say, please don't...
There will be an ID in those files.
No, but that's not the point. The point is that I want to be able to basically... I think that if you, put differently, I don't want to migrate the overlay, the SVN overlay to Git right now, simply because Gentoo x86 is not in Git. Whenever that one is in Git, yes, we can move, but not right now. So the only thing I want to say that there is a reason why I don't want some things to be switched. And it's not that simple that you think I just want everything in one VCS. Whether or not I like that VCS is a different thing, but right now it's just not very handy for me if you really have to move it over, so please don't. Okay, that's the point.
First of all, I never said that it's easy, and I know that it's not easy because I did most of the migrations here with Edgar again.
I worked on those. I'm really willing to work on any migration, and I don't know the internals of your.
But the migration is not the point. The migration is not the point. The thing is the way that, for instance, I use the repository. That's impossible with Git because I rely on something that SVN does.
Okay,
That's the point. So it's not a migration because I'm pretty sure you can do the migration pretty fine, even though it's useless because we're trying to empty that overlay as fast as we can.
Okay, I agree with that. Well, that's true. Each repository, each overlay had its own problems, its own issues, and its own hooks and scripts that had to be also migrated. I don't know the internals of each one of the Gentoo projects, and I'm really willing to cooperate with the maintainers. So I'm just pushing people just to move it faster. That's what I want to do.
I know the script of which you speak, and you're specifically using the CVS header or keyword expansion. In the Git migration, we're explicitly going to be using the one keyword that Git still expands, and that's the ID expansion instead. So your scripts can still work with that value. Once you're going to have to change them anyway, even if you don't move.
No, but the thing is that we have the Gentoo x86 tree and the prefix overlay, which is a copy that's kept in sync with that overlay. So I think it goes too deep right now to go into that detail. But the thing is, we build it on top of those two systems because they both keep the IDs, and we can keep the IDs and see whether something is out of date. And it's just that basically the only thing that I think is relevant here is that it is more pain and more work for everyone involved, I think, to migrate the SVN overlay to Git because we try to get rid of it as fast as we can. So it would be, in my opinion, much more for everyone better if we could get rid of it at all. And we don't need the history either because we're migrating it anyway, so it gets lost anyway. So that's not the point. The point is we want to get rid of it.
In that case, you want to save work for everybody. You just want to leave that one in there because it's going to go away.
Yeah.
In that case, yes.
So please don't migrate us because we, you want
to get rid of that repository. You just have you're just blocking on somebody else. Yeah, that's actually a useful special case.
Okay, so that's clear now. That's great.
This is going to be quick. I'm looking actually at the converted Git repo. I just want to know that the header, obviously it's expanded in the Git.
Yes.
And the line, obviously, since it's expanded, it's different than the one in CVS when it's expanded because the path is different.
I thought we fixed that in the conversion expansion already.
In the Git repo, it's user local SSD Gentoo x86 output and so on. So
Brian told me he changed that one, but I don't know if his changed copy was properly pushed.
This is from 5 days ago,
Yeah, we're iterating lots.
Okay.
It will be the same.
We have 10 minutes left, and I would like to speak about something else apart from the Git migration. One very good question that I haven't. I believe that
I think we have one more question first. If you're quick.
One of the advantages we want to move to Git is to get more contributors, right? So, is there a policy or any thoughts about how to deal with the branches and the overlays if we're going to have remote branches, and because we're going to have a gigantic tree into Git, and I guess we might lose users because the tree is so big that they don't want to do the pull request kind of thing with such a big tree. So maybe we could.
Why is the tree actually going to be that much bigger?
No, it's not going to be bigger, but. Right now it's really big. It's not going to be bigger. It's just going to continue being big.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I don't see where the problem is there.
Well, if you want to contribute, like a proxy maintainer, for example, you wouldn't have to pull the whole tree.
It will be. Once it goes with just a single tip commit, it's about 50 megs as a pack file. That's it. Is that too big? I don't think so.
I don't know. And how about the branches too? Will an overlay being a branch, or how?
If people want it to be a branch, I would prefer overlays weren't. They make far more sense as a near empty tree that is literally applied on top. For proxy maintainers, no, that's a different case than overlays. But they can still, a proxy maintainer can still go and take their overlay and generate patches with Git AM, and those should apply quite fine on top of the main tree.
Okay.
They just won't be able to do git pull, say do a pull request, because their history is different.
Just for the record, the .git in the current clone is 105 megabytes, so it's pretty small.
You don't have...
Sorry, shell clone 1.
It'll be even smaller than that, because those are all thick manifests. Pardon?
105 megabytes.
It'll be half that.
I have one question, although I know the answer. How can someone join the team?
The Infra team? Yeah, you want to do that? Do I want to reply? No, but I'll reply anyway. I would go with just come on IRC and talk to us, or email. I think in general, we have some small projects that we could have people work on, and we want to, work with you.
Because it makes our workload less.
It does make our workload less. We want to make sure that you're trustworthy. I think that's, as Rob mentioned earlier, that's a big factor. And I think in general, the project, not infrastructure, but the Gentoo project as a whole struggles with people that are, working on stuff long term. We have a lot of people that will commit to doing stuff and then never do stuff. That's been a problem in the past. So.
Or they'll come and join. There've been a few people who joined Infra in the past, worked on something for 3 months, and then vanished, never to be seen again from in the infrastructure team. And we put that work into training them and making sure they knew about their way around. We told them what we knew about those parts of the system, and they did 1 or 2 things, and then they left. That was a giant time sink.
Yeah. I think I think our stuff is fairly complicated. I'm not gonna lie. There's lots of bits that, I think being a self-starter is kind of important. You're going to need to be able to read code that other people wrote in multiple languages. And
Taylor's the latest one that joined. Why doesn't he answer?
Yes. How did you join the team?
I don't remember. I was young then.
You needed the money.
Yeah. So to answer my question. You just need to have motivation to do stuff. I believe it's a great team. We come to a lot of challenges every day, and I really like it because most of them are being solved by somebody else, so I don't have to do much, especially I work here. He does everything, yes. Okay.
No, guys, the real thing is that all of these people do wonderful things for Infra. I just try to herd them together. Big hand of applause for all of these guys.
And I have one more question. How easy is it for you to give root access to somebody that you don't know and you probably will never meet?
He was asking, how difficult do I find it to give root access to somebody I don't know and I've never met? It's a challenge. This is the first time I met several of these guys here. Actually, I'd met you before. Had I met any of the other infrastructure people before? No. They successfully got root access from me. I may have talked to them for a while first and given them those small projects and said, well, here's CF Engine. I won't give you root, but there's CF Engine. In CF Engine, you can give yourself root. You need to tell me what to change to make in CF Engine to give yourself root. These people all gave themselves root. They didn't. I just gave them access to CF Engine. You gave yourself root.
Anyway, I have an answer to the earlier question. About motivation, I'm going to talk about mine for a minute. I work at Google and I work on crap that's crazy and insane, and one of my fears is that I don't have any real-world experience anymore. I don't use MySQL or I use this horrible version of Linux that is non-transferable, and like there's all kinds of new awesome software out there that I was really excited about, you know, when I was in college, and I'm like, awesome, we got Apache and we got like Lady and we got all this stuff, and I don't use it now. And so I come and I work on Gentoo because I get to use like Varnish. Never used it before, it broke today, and I had to spend an hour figuring out how it works, and it's really neat to see where software has come since like the last time I've used stuff, and it's like, oh look, I can run Varnish log and look at all the real-time traffic and see how it works and why it's broken, and I find that to be really useful for myself because otherwise I would never get to use this software, and I really like open source, and I really like, you know, being able to use it in my day-to-day and work on Gentoo stuff. So yes, that's my main motivation, skill upkeep.
And I joined Infrastructure and Gentoo as a whole because it was broken when I was trying to do something and nobody was fixing it. I said, I'll fix it. And I'm still fixing it 9 years later.
Okay, we are out of time, and the next BOF is pretty important, so thank you, Robin, and thank you guys for this very interesting discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks all.